Events, a weekly presentation of KPTV's Public Affairs Department, dealing with issues of city, state, and national interest.
Good evening. I'm Bruce Mason, and I'd like to introduce the men in our consciousness-raising group. On my left is Dennis Schilling, Leslie Wheeler, Kenneth Luba, and Fred White.
We are a group of men who have been meeting together weekly for over a year. We call ourselves a CR, or Consciousness-Raising Group. We are here tonight to share with you some notions about what our CR group does. With this presentation, we hope to stimulate your interest in the need for changing male roles. We intend to show men with differing ideologies by presenting an illustration of the principles of unity of the Men's Resource Center, then a skit by the United Fruit Company, a men's theater group, and finally a group discussion.
The Men's Resource Center is composed of changing men working to eliminate sexism in our own lives and in society at large. Sexism is the unequal, oppressive treatment of women or men because of their sex or sexual orientation. We are men who believe we can no longer relate to others as second-class persons. We believe also that sexism and sex roles not only hurt women, but hurt us. We are driven by competition which isolates us. We hold in our feelings, and we try to be in charge all the time. We are struggling to develop full relationships with other men, with children, and with persons we care about. We don't claim to have completely translated these beliefs into actions. We have been conditioned since childhood, often in subtle ways, to live out expected male roles.
Sexism is rooted in the systematic power of men over women. These include economic, political, legal, cultural, sexual, physical, and psychological. Sexism flourishes because women are forced to depend on men for protection, money, information, status, health, dress codes, and acceptable behavior. All men have special privileges, such as freedom from routine fear of rape and freedom from the social pressure to raise children.
We recognize that some men, because of their sexual orientation, economic class, race, or age, have fewer privileges than other men. These divisions among men are reinforced by sexism, which stereotypes less privileged men as unmanly or feminine, hypersexed, irrational, ignorant, irresponsible, incompetent, or submissive. These power divisions keep men competing to appear straighter, richer, whiter, older, or younger.
The Men's Resource Center supports and initiates projects which lessen the unfair power and privileges, both individual and institutional, of men over women, and of some men over others. We support women's liberation projects which seek to gain personal and political power for all women. Much of what we have learned about sexism has come from feminists, and we continue to learn from women. We feel the best way that we can be supportive of women and act in our own self-interest is to come together with other men in critical and supportive relationships.
The Men's Resource Center consists of men with a variety of viewpoints and concerns. We differ among ourselves in political ideology, sexual preference, lifestyle, race, age, economic class, and background. We don't assume that any given member of the Men's Resource Center will participate in all the activities of the group. We come together in many ways: small groups, private conversations, large meetings, with children, in classrooms, and in kitchens. We seek to overcome sexism in ourselves, in each other, and in our society.
Hi, we're the United Fruit Company. We put together some skits about being male in America and growing up as a boy in this culture. And I'd like to tell you a little bit about what we're going to be doing. We have a skit about being a boy and growing up in this culture and experiences like in all male groups like Boy Scouts and the like. And we want to examine some of the ways that men learn to relate to our own bodies and to each other in real competitive sorts of ways. And we want to examine growing up gay in this culture and what that means.
It's important to give them a kind of an overview of manhood. You know, like masculinity as a disease.
Masculinity as a disease. Now the way that you know, the symptoms of that disease for each of us are the male roles and behavior
Dennis,
that we
I'm talking about patriarchy. I mean, we've got to talk to these people about male supremacy. What? I mean, I'm talking about imperialism.
Look, I think both of you are just
on.
throwing out a bunch of words, male supremacy, imperialism. People aren't going to relate to a bunch of rhetorical words like that. We've got to come more from our own personal experience.
I agree completely. I mean, I want to talk about personal experience.
Look, when I first got the idea for this play, I particularly wanted to avoid that kind of...
When you first got the idea for this play, you know, I had a lot to do with it.
Hey, now wait a minute, Jamie, Don, Jamie, you're both way off the track. I mean, who had the idea for this play in the first place? That's important. I mean, you haven't said a thing about process.
Okay,
Isn't it what we collectively think about both our male roles and behavior and growing up in this society?
I agree completely. I mean, that's exactly what I wanted to do with this play, was to talk about, you know, a collective statement about male roles.
No,
Dennis,
that's what I wanted to do.
Patriarchy.
No, that's not it at all. No, Jamie, that's not right. No, it was no, it was me.
Anything you can do, I can do better. I can do anything better than you. Anything you can do, I can do better. I can do anything better than you.
No, you can't.
Yes, I can. No, you can't.
Yes, I can. No, you can't.
Yes, I can. Yes, I can. Yes, I can. I got done with mine first, and it's bigger than yours. It is so. I'll hit you.
Hey, wait till the guys find out I'm going out with Jeannie, the best-looking girl in the whole school. Maybe I'll score.
God, this paper's great. I'm going to have the highest grade point average in the class.
Sales were tops this month. We're going to have a profit like nobody's business.
Best body.
Biggest cock.
Fastest car.
Gentlest lover.
Highest income.
Best analysis.
Most cogent point.
Most anti-sexist.
Hey, look, up in the sky. It's a bird.
No, it's a plane.
It's
Superman! Faster than a speeding bullet. More powerful than a locomotive. Able to leap tall buildings in a single bound. Yes, Superman, strange visitor from another planet with powers and abilities far beyond those of mortal men, who can bend steel in his bare hands, change the course of mighty rivers, and who, disguised as Clark Kent, mild-mannered reporter for a great metropolitan newspaper, fights a never-ending battle for truth, justice, and the American way.
And crown thy good with brotherhood from sea to shining sea.
Oh, hey, wait a minute. I don't believe that super stud image. I mean, we're beyond that, aren't we?
God, I'm so skinny. I think it's mostly my chest. They always tell me I have bad posture. No, I suppose it's silly. If only I was a little bit stronger. Maybe I should start lifting weights.
Don't want to show the profile, not with a beak like that. How can I smile cool and sexy? I wonder what that new toothpaste is they got out now. Some people smile and all I got is teeth.
Why do you have to make such a big deal of it? I mean, when I'm hard, I'm big enough for him and everything. God. All right, so most of the time I don't look like much, but all that stuff about guys with big cocks being sexy, that's all a lot of crap. Well, I could care less what he thinks.
Oh. Happy birthday. More gray hair. What's left of it? Oh, and a whole lot of wrinkles. Nobody likes older men. What's that they say? You're not growing older, you're growing better. Well, I'll have to tell that to myself when I'm sleeping all alone. Oh, hey, why am I talking crazy like that? I mean, I'm never going to be a superstar or a super stud or even real sexy like that bartender. And the more I think about it, the worse I'm going to feel. Well, so I'm getting older every day. Well, everybody else is too. And it's nothing to be ashamed of. And worrying about is just a waste of energy. Besides, the other day, someone said they liked the way I smiled. And it made them happy to hear me laugh. Well, I know my body feels soft and warm to hold, and it's different from anybody else's. I like my body, and I like myself.
We'd like to thank United Fruit Company for their presentation, which illustrates some of our concerns and why we're here tonight. Each of us has different reasons for being involved in a CR group, but one thing that's common to all of us is a need to relate to other men who share the same kind of interests. This was particularly true for me when I first came to Portland, and I found that the men I was working with and other men I was meeting, I don't know, there seemed to be some kind of thing, an emotional thing lacking. I became aware of the Men's Resource Center after I attended a seminar on changing roles in the family. And then after that I went to a men's gathering, which there were about 100 men or so, all involved in a kind of consciousness-raising effort. So after that I made some specific efforts to find a CR group, and that's how I came into this group. I think it's really important to understand that a CR group is not a therapy group, but it's a kind of place where we really want to work on supportive relationships and instead of encounter kinds of things.
Yeah, that's one of the things that I was really intrigued in getting into a group like this with, is finding men who shared similar thinking patterns, you know, and had the same interests, and wanted to find men that they could get together and rap with things about, who were, you know, concerned with the way things were happening in our society and ways we could change them to make us more fulfilled people.
The supportive issue is something that is really important to me, and it's a real strong factor in me staying in the group. Excuse me. A few years back, I was in a role similar to how Ken is now, as somewhat of a house husband. I was a student and also working part-time, but I found myself being more and more cut off from my friends, and I kept wondering, you know, why don't I ever see these people anymore? They just kind of quit coming around. And I met some people from the Men's Resource Center, and I got involved in first of all, writing a short paper on what it was like to, well, it was a paper on part-time work, because both my wife and I were working part-time. And from there I got involved in going to places like Portland State and some various high schools around and talking about different roles that men were assuming, and women also. There were discussions on various roles. Mm-hmm. And I began to meet a few people there and feel a little better about it, and I met a member from this group that kept kind of coaxing me into joining the group, and I thought, well, you know, I kind of have my stuff together. I don't know if I can go to a group like this and get much out of it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And, I think it's...
I did come to the group, and I've gotten a lot out of it. It's been the last year.
I think it's interesting how we've changed and taken different kinds of approaches to what we do in the group. Sometimes we have taken an article or something and discussed it that way. And other times we just sit around and rap and talk about what's going on in our lives.
And I think sometimes we become really personal. Mm-hmm. And since we've been together for so long, you know, I feel really at ease with all of you, and that tends to make us talk a lot about our personal lives, and that goes back to the supportive kind of relationship that we all have. I know, you know, in my own life I made some big changes, deciding to stay home and take care of an infant while my wife worked, and being in this group, and you know, you all helped me with that, and we talk about it and we laugh about it. But I think the outside world doesn't really yet understand what that's all about, and I've been, you know, made the butt of many jokes, and that is so unsupportive. Mm-hmm. And
yeah, one of the things that I know I came across, and I know you've mentioned that you come across it too, is that when you're staying home with your child, you're a babysitter. You're not a parent.
Right.
You know, babysitters are people that are generally paid to take care of somebody else's kids. Right. And when I was staying home, I was always a babysitter.
Well, there's something about men not being able to be cuddling with their children, and being, especially with infants. You know, infants is like something that men probably don't want to have anything to do with. Mm-hmm. But there's something about, you know, this manly role that I was so tired of, and so tired with hassling all through school, and I think it's helped just being in this group.
Yeah, it's really helped me a lot. I think I've been aware of it more since I've been in the group and started forming relationships with everyone. You know, I was aware that, you know, conscience-raising groups were really supportive. And that was kind of different from what I had experienced, you know, before. You know, tended to be in, you know, men's groups or, you know, kind of competitive sort of things. And usually I ended up feeling, you know, just tense, and often came out of it feeling, you know, somewhat inadequate about myself. And, you know, that's a real crucial issue for me about being in the group. And also being able to, you know, form close relationships with men. You know, most of my relationships with men before were, you know, you talk about sports or you go out and play sports, and the competitive thing, you know, was really a factor.
Yeah, that thing about sports, you know, I was thinking a lot of times when I was in situations, either at work or just social situations, when I had to feign this great interest in sports.
Yeah, right.
You know, I really didn't give a damn, but I had to pretend that I had to know all the scores and everything that was going on to be accepted in the office or wherever it was.
Yeah. Another important thing about, you know, our group is that, you know, we're not, you know, there's no real leader. And I think that's been a real struggle to maintain that. Oftentimes it's so easy for them to get in that leader role, you know, because we're just, you know, so conditioned to to be in that role.
Someone has to lead.
Yeah, or it's very easy to set back and let someone else take the lead. Very conditioned to the minute a man starts asserting himself, to, if we're not willing to put up a fight at that moment, to letting him have it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Some groups, when there is that kind of a problem, do things like giving every man 5 chips, and when you've used your 5 chips, you don't talk until everybody else has used all their chips. But I'm glad we haven't had that kind of problem.
Right. Yeah, and another thing to it is just how often men interrupt, women in particularly, and sometimes in our group, that's been a factor, and we seem like we work through that somewhat. We're very conscious about not interrupting, each other, and I think for me it's kind of led over to my personal life. I'm really aware of not cutting off women when they talk.
Well, you talked too about that it really affected your work, being, in mental health and being able to,
Yeah, it's given me a lot different perspective on things. I'm really in tune to, just what it's like to grow up male and how men, in a lot of ways, are, oppressing themselves by not getting in touch with their feelings and, just holding them in and not going to someone. That's a real big issue. Often there's so many women that come into, it's just so disproportional.
Well, I think that's been really important to all of us, is, being able to take it to work or take it into our homes, or, any kind of relationship that I encounter now. I think about what I'm saying, how I'm affecting that person, especially if that person is a woman.
Yeah. Sometimes it's kind of threatening at work.
At work, right.
At least it has been for me.
There's a lot of peer pressure to conform to the accepted male role, to meet that other man's needs so he doesn't feel threatened by your presence.
I see that too, especially working when I'm working with parents. Usually the mother does most of the talking, and Dad doesn't say much. Dad says yes or no. If he's around. Well, he has to be around in our situation. But men don't talk and don't express any feelings, and Mom has lots of feelings about what we're doing with that particular kid. Dad just nods, yes or no, agrees, stuff like that.
Yeah, and ends up feeling really isolated and alienated, not only from his family, but himself.
Yeah, so that keeps reinforcing that good old role about you don't care.
Right. I don't want to be isolated from my family, from my children.
I found since I've been in the group and more willing to, reach out and become closer to men, I'm much closer to my father now than I used to be.
For sure.
Yeah.
And we're really developing a nice friend relationship.
That's really neat.
Yeah.
I didn't know that, Les.
It's getting better.
One of the things that I found also, I returned to full-time work about a year ago from very, very much part-time work, and I've kind of found the opposite of what Ken found or said, that he doesn't want to get far away from his family. And I find that the work situation, I commute to Salem every day, and I find that work situation really puts me in a position where I just, I'm really kind of losing contact with my kids, where I had a really close contact with them for 2 years when I was home with them all the time, and it's really bad, and I want to get out of that situation when I can. But
Okay, if you'd like more information about CR groups, or you'd like to receive the Men's Resource Center newsletter, or learn more about Men's Resource Center activities, you can call the center at 235-3433, or drop in at 3534 Southeast Main. Thank you.
This country's prisons are overflowing with those who don't fit the white mold. Black and Indian, Puerto Rican Chicana, stripped of their cultures and stripped of their souls. It's coming soon, a time for change. I want my sisters to live freely from being raped, from being killed. I want my brothers to love freely, learning to cry and learning how to feel, learning to cry and learning how to feel. Touch me, cry with me, feel me inside you. It's coming soon, a time for change to set us all free. It's coming soon, a time for change to set us all free. Tear down the prison walls, free the spirit, free the souls of the cultures that loved the land. A land where men walk hand in hand and women live without a man. It's coming soon, a time for change to set us all free, free.